welcome to Living Traditions Homestead. My name is Sarah. This is my husband Kevin. Well, we've had a lot of questions over the last couple weeks as we've been sharing our garden with you. And one of those questions is whether or not we'll be putting in an irrigation system so that we don't have to haul in here and drag in here a hose to water everything when there's not enough rain. And the answer is yes, we are going to, and that is today.
We've been using this type of watering system for about 7 years now, and we actually started using it when we still lived in Arizona in the desert, which obviously when you're in the desert you need to water a lot more frequently. But what we use in our garden is drip tape irrigation.
Now there are lots of reasons why we use drip tape versus soaker hoses or drip tubing and versus a sprinkler or just watering with the hose. So we wanted to go over with you a little bit why we choose the drip tape irrigation versus the other systems that are available out there.
Now at your local big box store you can usually find drip tube irrigation designed for small areas, for maybe around the edge of your property or in flower beds, little areas like that, and it will it'll do an okay job, but it's designed to only water a very small spot and possibly even just one straight line. Those types of systems also need a considerably more water pressure to work, especially if you're going to try to use them on a big area, which is why the drip tape is the perfect system for your garden, because it uses very little water pressure and it's designed to be able to do a very large area and lots of rows all at once.
Now we tried in the past when we were gardening on a very small scale the soaker hoses that you can find out there, and the primary problem we found with them is that they often, after very little time, will develop holes in the soaker hose area and have these big geysers going up all over the place, which wastes a lot of water and reduces the amount of pressure to the rest of the hose. And I just felt like for the cost of those soaker hoses and for the little amount of time that they really worked, it just wasn't worth it for us, even on a small scale, but especially on a larger scale like we grow today.
Right. And then the other option that you always have is just to either run a sprinkler or use a wand and water the plants that way. And that can be an okay method if you're doing a very small scale. The main problem with that is, again, if you're doing a big scale, it's just very time consuming.
Time and effort, yeah.
Right. And but the main drawback is watering your plants from above like that really can cause a lot of problems with things like powdery mildew, right, and different types of mold and fungus.
Yeah. So it's better to water at the soil level.
Right, and that's what the drip tape does, is it waters right down at the base of the plant, and it doesn't get the leaves wet, which keeps them a lot healthier.
This system also works really well with different timers that are out there. We won't probably have to water on a time schedule here, but when we were in the Phoenix, Arizona area, man, that really helped us out. We could just put the watering on a timer where every day or every other day it would water for a certain amount of time, and then we could just kind of set it and forget it and everything would work well on its own.
Right. Here in Missouri, we get enough rain that a lot of times we can go weeks without having to use the watering system. But we also go through times where it's pretty dang dry here.
Yeah.
Last year, we started the year off with more rain than we needed. And by June, I think we went almost 3 months last summer with really no measurable rain at all. A lot of the farmers around here who raise hay, who have big hay fields, were really having a hard time because hay just wasn't growing because there wasn't enough rain. So that's why we like to have a system in place, even if we don't use it on a real frequent basis. We need it in place before the plants get big,
right,
so that when we need it in the middle of the summer, it's all set up and ready to go.
Technically, we probably should have put this down either at the time of planting or right before we planted. But as you know, guys, things get busy and you prioritize and reprioritize. And so right now is the time that we have found to put down our irrigation system. It'll still be okay because the plants are still pretty little.
Right. So today we're going to get it set up. I'll show you as we go along some of the tools that you're going to need and the different components of how this system works.
This system is also reusable from year to year. We just really don't like buying things that we need to completely replace every year. Just like our woven ground cover fabric that we are using, you can reuse that multiple years. Same with this drip tape irrigation system.
Right, we hope to be able to get at least 5+ years out of each purchase that we make of the drip tape. The main line will probably last even longer than that.
Right.
And the one thing that we didn't talk about either is that one nice thing about this system is that you can run a liquid fertilizer like fish emulsion and liquid seaweed types, things like that. You can run that right through the drip tape irrigation to fertilize your plants, which really works out nicely.
Yeah.
So the first thing we need to do is tack down our main line. Now we're reusing the same piece of main line that we had from last year. And because we change the configuration of our garden every year, the actual rows where the drip tape is going to go don't line up in the right spot. But that's not going to be a problem. I'll show you how we'll correct that. We're going to line up the first one, and from there on out we'll have to make some corrections. So the first thing I'm going to do is just use some landscape staples, the same thing we use on the woven ground cover. And we're just going to put one at each end of the main line just to hold it kind of in place close to where we want it. And then at the end we'll go back and put in more staples to hold it down tight. Now because the drip tape uses very low water pressure, if you have a lot of water pressure where you are, which most people do, even if you have a well like we do, you're going to want to get a pressure reducer for the end of your main line. And this will lower your water pressure down to the appropriate level for the drip tape system. So the first row that we're going to hook up is our row of radishes. This one I have lined up in the right spot. We're going to run it right down the middle of the row because we planted our radishes in 2 rows, so there's a space down the middle. So when you buy your drip tape system, it's going to come, this main line is going to be just a solid hose. You'll make holes in it and you'll stick these little emitters in. I'll show you that in a little while when we need to move one of the other ones, how that is done. It's a very easy process. So these just stick in, and then your drip tape itself will come on a roll, and it's a, it's a real thin plastic. And then within the plastic, every 12 inches is a little, it looks like just a little cut, and there's something on the inside that makes the water just drip out. Now with a drip tape system, or any drip system really, you want to run it for a long time. You're better off to run for a longer amount of time less frequently than you are to run it, say, every day for just a short amount of time. You really want to be able to soak those plants. Now even though the emitters are 12 inches apart and our radishes are planted like every 3 or 4 inches, it will be enough. The water will spread and it'll be plenty to water all of the plants. So the way that you hook it up is really simple. You just slide the end of your drip tape onto the emitter, and then you just screw these. They screw backwards, and just like that, it's all hooked up. Now we'll just position it down the row so that it stays down the center of the row. We'll use the landscape staples again to hold it into place, and then that row will be done. We can move on to the next row. So what I like to do when I know that I have this in the right place is I'll put one staple here at the main line, and that will hold it in place. And then we don't go overboard with the amount of staples that we put down the row, but maybe every 10 feet or so we'll put just one staple to hold it where it should be. Now don't put them so tight that they kink, and won't allow water to get through. You just want it to hold it. It's just trying to hold it into place. Now in this next row, we need to add a brand new row. We never had one in this spot, and we're actually we have more rows in the garden this year than we did last year, so we need to add some new ones. So it's the perfect time for me to show you how that works. What you're going to need is a little tool that looks like this, or something similar. You buy these along with your drip system when you buy it, and of course you just hang on to this and use it every year. And basically all it is a little punch, and you just use this to make a hole right in your main line to add your emitter. Now in our case on this row, because we already planted it, we're going to put the drip tape just a little off center because we planted right down the middle of the row. So I'm going to just take my tool here and make the hole right where I want the emitter to be. So you just take your tool here and you just basically push until it snaps into the main line, pull it out, and you're all done. From there, you're going to take your actual emitter and just push it into that hole that you just made with your little tool. And now you're all set to hook your piece of drip tape up. Now on this next row, we actually need to move one of the emitters that we had in here last year because it just doesn't line up in the right spot. So we're going to use what are called dummy plugs or goof plugs. They just come on a little thing like this, and basically all you do is pull your emitter out of the main line, and then you can just take one of these plugs, put that in its place, and that patches up the hole in the main line. Now, I'll tell you, you're probably going to see a couple drips of water coming out of there while you water, but you know, it's a drip system and the water's in your garden, so who really cares? It's not going to patch it up 100%. Don't worry about it. It's not going to affect your water pressure or anything else. But just so you know, you will see a little water come out where you patched up a hole. So now that we've filled up that spot, we'll just move the emitter. Same thing that we did when we added a brand new one. We'll use our tool to make a hole. And we'll just move that emitter to where we want it for this year. Just like that. So we'll just do that same thing all the way down this row, or all the way down the length of the garden. And then we'll go get all of our pieces of drip tape and start moving them over.
Plants, they're amazing. You know, I think it's been a week since I've looked at them, and probably about the same amount of time since we showed them to you last when we were doing the temperature probe. Look at these, they're gorgeous. I don't think I've seen as perfect of cabbage plants as we have. They're just gorgeous and perfect. Oh man, this is really working out well. I'm so pleased.
Now it's time to install the drip tape underneath the floating row covers. You saw on the rows that we did where there's just a gap between the two pieces of ground cover that we just run the drip tape along the side or down the middle of the row. On the pieces where we actually have plants growing through holes, what we'll do is we'll move the drip tape and we'll get it as close to the plant as we can, and we'll try to get it down so that it's right on each of those holes all the way down. Now, one thing that I haven't mentioned is that when you're putting down your drip tape, you want the drip emitter to be up. You want it to be facing up so that the water comes out and runs down the side of the tube. There's also a lot of debate about what is better, whether or not it should be underneath your woven ground cover or on top. It's kind of one of those subjects where if you ask 100 people, you're going to get 100 different opinions about what is the right thing to do. So what we have done and what has worked really well for us is we put it on top of the ground cover. The reason that we do that is because we feel like if there's a problem with the system, then we can see it. If it's underneath and then all of a sudden something happens, you're not going to be able to see until maybe it's too late, your plants start to die or something like that, that there's a problem with your drip system. So we like it on top. It seems to still go through the ground cover just fine, make it to the plants. We haven't had any problems at all. So that's how we do it. The other nice thing is that if there is a problem with the system, we don't have to pull up all of our ground cover in order to fix the problem, which really would be about impossible once your plants are big, especially on the rows where you have the plants just growing through a hole like this. You'd really have to just do without the drip system until those plants were done. So we're going to get busy hooking this up. Other than what we've already talked about, it's just about the same. You just want to make sure that you can get it, as close to the plants as you can. It doesn't really matter if there's, drip emitters in between the plants. I mean, it's nice when it works out that they line up perfectly, but in general, there's going to be enough water for all of the plants if you just have it running down the middle of the row.
Well, you guys, that is a good job done. Now we have peace of mind that if we don't get rain for a while, we can just turn on the drip system and it will take care of the garden.
Now typically we will use the drip system if we haven't had rain in about a week. Then we will start using it. Here in Missouri, we would use it for about an hour once a week and see how that does. We judge that by how moist the soil is, a couple inches down, and what the air temperature is, and just see if the plants look like they still need more than that. If they do, we'll increase it to an hour and a half or 2 hours. When we lived in Arizona in the desert, we actually ran our drip system about an hour and a half every other day. And that's really what the plants needed. So you really need to judge based on where you live. It's hard for us to give you advice for every climate.
If you'd like to learn more about this drip system, go ahead and check out growersolution.com. That's where we're getting ours, and they have a lot of knowledge there, you guys. If you have questions about what all you would need, or if you have questions about how it works, make sure that you give them a call even. It's not just a website. There are actually people behind there that are very knowledgeable and super helpful.
Right, because it can get a little confusing with all of the connectors that you need and everything that can help you out.
Don't forget that there is a 10% off your order coupon code called Traditionalist10. Make sure you put that in online, or if you order over the phone, let them know that you heard about them from us. They'll go ahead and give you that discount.
So we're glad that you guys came along with us today as we set up the drip system. We're going to be putting in another one in the new garden as soon as we're ready to plant that. We may even put that one in before we plant, so that we're a little bit ahead of the game. Springtime gets awful busy though, so this is how we're doing it this time. You guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're not a subscriber of our channel yet, now is the perfect time to hit the subscribe button. If you know other people in your life who enjoy gardening and homesteading and you would think it would enjoy our channel, please share our videos with them. We sure would appreciate that. And until next time, thank you so much for stopping by the homestead. Take care, and God bless.
God bless.